Hi there, this is Pradeep Talloju from Provis Software. Today, I'm going to talk about Axway Amplify API Management. Axway has been the leader in API management for a long time now, and it comes both as an on-premise solution and also as a SaaS offering. So today, we'll go over what Amplify gives as part of our API management offerings. First of all, Amplify API Management Platform is an on-premise solution, and it contains the API gateway, a unified catalog, it has a marketplace, and it also provides an API portal. It comes with Amplify Integration Builder, which is a value add when you actually think about what it gives you. We'll go over Integration Builder in a little bit of detail and then see how connectors can be used and workflows be created. We'll obviously do that as part of Amplify Central because that is a SaaS offering, and we'll do it with as less an overhead as possible for our initial setup to get us going, right? So Amplify Streams is another part where it helps really if you are working with a lot of event-driven applications in your enterprise. Amplify also has agents that you could set up for discovery, subscription, and traceability, which will eventually give you the awesome analytics and insights about the APIs that you have deployed and the ones that are getting used most and the ones that are maybe need an upgrade and the ones that may need to be retired. So if you go to axway.com, it takes you to its homepage wherein you can browse through products into Amplify API Management Platform. You can go in and click on this Try It Now box that is going to let you sign up for an account and provides you with a 30-day free trial of its SaaS offering. So once you register and sign in, this is the welcome page from platform axway.com. As you can see, you have Central and you have Integration Builder that we briefly discussed about. You also have a unified catalog page that you can take a look at and also subscribe to multiple endpoints. So before we go any further on this, let's take a look at what we are actually going to implement, and then we'll get back onto this. As part of our demo today, let's take a look at various components that we are going to work with. Within Amplify Central, you will see that there are governance and maintenance related functionality that's packaged with it. Along with that, you will also see API proxy, which forms one of the most fundamental building blocks for any API gateway. We'll connect through proxy a backend API that's listening on HTTP GET operation. This service, when invoked, provides student information as a response. The API is deployed into an AWS EC2 instance, and we'll see how through proxy we are going to configure so that we connect to this backend API implementation. Further to that, you will see how connectors from Integration Builder are used to connect to third-party SaaS offerings. In our case, we are connected to Sales Cloud from Salesforce and Jira from Atlassian, both third-party SaaS connections that provide APIs to invoke functionality. We can invoke these APIs right from Amplify platform, as you will see. You will also see Flow as part of Integration Builder that can tie the various services through a given workflow and execute them as an orchestration. To illustrate, we'll see how a flow may be deployed with a trigger scheduled to invoke an API, and then the backend service is also invoked as part of the flow. The mapping component that you see in Integration Builder allows for creation of new API interfaces from an existing one. This is interesting as it supports creation of new API interface from an existing one. It provides for transformation of an underlying API's response and exposes it as a separate API for you. All right, so let's go to the place where there is all the action going on. So the first thing I want to do is check if my backend service is up and running. I see it is not, so I'm going to do a quick start of that instance. So I have it running now. I'm going to quickly check one more time, maybe give it some time. Oh, it's up. So good. I'm going to go ahead and check through the Postman after getting my instance public IP. So this is my public IP. I'm going to maybe go back to my instance and run my service. Okay, so I see that I have my response back from AWS instance. Now let me go ahead and check if the Swagger URL is working as well. So I know that my Swagger URL is on the same port with the URI of Swagger. And yes, it is still working. I would go ahead and do a quick check one more time through the Swagger URL, and I'm able to test it out. Good. In order for me to register my backend API through Amplify API platform, I'm going to need the Swagger URL. So as you can see from the Swagger page, this is the Swagger URL that I'm going to copy and then use it as part of my registration of API in the Amplify. So let's go back to our Amplify homepage, and from there, let's try to register our API. So we go back to the homepage of platform.axway.com where we had registered and signed in, and I would go to Central to create my backend API's proxy. I'll go ahead and click on register an API and use the Swagger URL that I had fetched it. I'm going to use this to register my API and then click next. And I'm going to make it v2 because I know that there is already one that I had created earlier. And my base path would be students, or rather student info. And that should be it. I could use a few tags, but I'm okay at this point. And then I'm going to click save. Oh, because student info already exists, it throws an error. So I'm going to say v2 again here as well. And that should be it. So I'll go test my proxy right now. So it gives me a couple of options by default to put it onto the test and prod. I'm going to do a deploy on the test, and it's going to give me an endpoint URL, and this URL is now the gateway URL. I'm going to add it to the catalog as well, because once you add it in a catalog, it's basically visible for anyone who has access to this gateway, and it helps in reusability of a given API. So I'm going to keep everything the same and then click on add to catalog. Great. So I'm good with what I have now. I know I can, filter out the APIs. This is the one I just created or added to the catalog. But I'll go back to the API proxy and I want to test it out. So I'll go in and click on test methods. As you see the same, operations that you saw on the Swagger earlier, and you also see this try it out button. And when I click on execute, you will see that it actually is now invoked from this URL, which is the API gateway. And as you can see, this is the base URL that we had provided earlier and then followed by students. Great. So what's really happening is when there is an invocation on this end, this call is being sent out to the EC2 instance, the service that's running on the EC2 instance on the back end, and then the response is brought back onto the gateway, and that is what you see here. One of the items that we discussed when we were talking about the various components of Amplify API platform was the integration builder. So if you go look at integration builder and take a look at all the various subcomponents that it has or the offerings that it has, you will see that one of the most prominent things here is the connectors. The connectors provide an out-of-box solution to connect to a lot of SaaS offerings in the market. So you could, for example, go ahead and connect to Dropbox, for example. And when you have this authenticated for the first time and when you instantiate these connectors, you would basically be able to invoke any APIs that it provides. For example, as we discussed, I already have an existing connection to a Salesforce Sales Cloud here. So I've done the connection and I am able to create an instance of it. Once I have an instance of it, I will have access to the API docs that it provides. So basically whatever I'm able to invoke as part of that SaaS offering, in this case, Salesforce Cloud, I'm able to invoke all those from right here. So for example, let me go ahead and invoke a certain operation. So I'm going to do get all accounts and let me go ahead and try it out. And as you could see, I'm able to execute it right away and it's going to give me a bunch of accounts that it has as part of this. Now these are the same accounts that I would see if I had gone to my Salesforce dashboard and if I looked up for my accounts. Let's take a look at how we create a Sales Cloud connector instance. Let's say I want to create another instance of Salesforce Sales Cloud. I would hover over this and then click on Authenticate and provide a name for it. I want to use the same name or maybe a different one because I already have one with this name. So I would just say Sales Cloud. And this is important. Events enabled basically means that your flow is ready, or you can configure your flow, which we'll talk in a bit, to actually listen to all the events that are coming in from the SaaS portal. So basically, let's say you have a new contact added, and based on that trigger, you want to do something else, or you want to invoke another API, then all such triggers or events are configured. You can have all of this, all the events enabled, or if there is a specific event that you are interested in, you could select from among all the events that the API provides. So for now, to keep it simple, we'll just disable this and try to create an instance. So when I do that, obviously it is going to ask me to authenticate for the first time. So I'm going to provide my username and password. And once authenticated, it is going to ask me if I would allow access to all of these. For now, I'm going to say yes. And then you would see that there is another connector configuration that is set up. You can see the comment or the message here that you have successfully created a Salesforce Sales Cloud Connector instance. Great. So I go back to my instances, and then I know that there is the new one that I had just created, just as simple as that. And when you click on API docs, you are basically exposed to all the information, or all the APIs rather, that you could actually invoke on your third-party software. Great. Isn't that quick? So that is basically what the connector says, and the connector instances that we just created out of that connection configuration. There is a similar one that I had created for Jira as well, which is an offering from Atlassian, a SaaS based. And if you have all the information that you want to add, you could basically add the related information and then authenticate. And once it's authenticated, it will let you go ahead and create an instance of it. And once you have that instance, as you can see here, you can click on the API docs and go ahead and invoke all the APIs that it allows you to. So as you could tell, this is a great way of consolidating all your APIs in one place, and Amplify can really be your go-to place to discover, to integrate, to orchestrate, and do a lot of API management. Another offering from Integration Builder is the mappings. I've created a small mapping service here that we can quickly go over. If I click on the overview, it shows me that I have 3 different field names as part of my response. And in here, you can actually go ahead and click on this mapped instances, and you can see that I'm actually filtering out only 3 fields from the response from the Salesforce Service Cloud's contact URI. So I have a quick test and try it out kind of interface here. I can click on try out and actually see that it is a get operation on Service Cloud contact filter I just created, and I can execute it. What it basically does is transforms the request, the response that I get from the Service Cloud, and only shows the fields that I have filtered out. So as you can see, the transformed body now only contains last name, first name, and email of all the contacts that are part of the response from the Service Cloud. So this is a quick filtering that you don't need a lot of transformation, but just a quick filter. And also, in fact, you can actually do a transformation as well if you wanted, but that would be through flows. But this is a quick mapping. You probably want only a few things mapped from a lot of things that you might actually get, or you want to shield some part of the response for a certain audience, then you could use these mappings as a very handy functionality for you to create your own set of mappings from the actual service. One of the final things that we are going to cover as part of this series is the flows. As discussed, we already have a flow here that I'm going to explain rather than build it from scratch. If you look at how it is on the canvas here, you can probably make out it's very simple. What I have here is a trigger and invocation of 2 APIs in a certain sequence. As you can see, this trigger, if I go into the details, it shows that it is of a manual type. I can add multiple types of triggers. I could say it is a trigger could be event based, or it could be on a schedule, but I've used a manual trigger here for simplicity. So I'm going to use this trigger, and then the next thing I'm going to do is do a get contacts from one of our cloud instances that we connected. And once we have that information, in fact, all I'm doing here is invoking the next service. But in general, there are a host of things that you can do. For example, if I click on this and then say add on success, I will see what steps I could add. I could add any of these. I can make a active MQ request, or I could do a HTTP request. I could do a request on a connector API request, or I can even do some scripting. So there are a lot of things that I could do, including calling a subflow. So in this case, I'm just getting those results and really doing nothing else but also invoking another API, which is the one that we had proxied in earlier. So I'm going to use the same service and then call this out. Really nothing other than that. So let's go ahead and try it out and look at the execution. I'll click on this try it out here, and I would select an instance that is made out of this flow, which I had named new flow instance. And because this is a manual trigger and really no body is needed as part of that, I'm going to use it as is with the empty flower braces and then click on run. As you can see, the moment I hit run, it goes through these 3 different steps and also gives a message down here that it is a success. And if I wanted to dig further into it and see what exactly happened in each of these steps, I would go to the tab here, executions, and click on the latest run that had just occurred. And clicking on each of these steps here will actually give me what were the inputs and what were the outputs of that, and what were also the arguments through which that trigger or that step got executed. The first one, as you can see here, is the trigger. The second one is a call to our sales cloud that we had configured earlier. So as you can see, it is getting all the users on that cloud, which we don't need really to look into. It's just a list of a JSON list of all the messages, all the objects. And in the third step, which is invoking our student info that we had been doing as part of our proxy request, you could see all the various headers that were sent in as part of that request, and you can also see the response body. So that's it really. We have just executed a flow, which is an orchestration of all the various APIs in a certain sequence. In fact, you can go further and do more workflows within this. You can have a path for success, a path for failure, and you can also have some exception paths. You can also integrate it with a messaging middleware if you wish to. There is an option for using AMQP protocol, as you had seen just a little while ago. And there are other ways of executing and designing your flows as well. As you can see, this is just the last bit that we were going to cover, and it completes, although we haven't covered everything that you could see as part of the Amplify integration builder or Amplify Central. It still is a lot that we have packed together today. So I hope you have learned something from this, and I hope you'll try your hands-on on this, and I hope you'll have fun. So that's it I have for today, and take care. Bye.